How loud is the noise for your team? If your team is 1-2 or 0-3, how loud are the fans calling for people's heads, calling for players' heads, calling for a new quarterback, calling for the coach to be fired? How loud is it? That's what this tier list is here to decide. Everybody who has not or who does not have a winning record right now is going to be sorted into this tier list, starting with eardrums bursting. That's the absolute loudest that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bad look, and then all the way down to a library where obviously the noise is very quiet. People are not concerned about the team. So
Yeah, and
without
I'll be interested to see how many we end up putting in that library. Given these are teams that have lost 2 out of the first 3 games at minimum. So we'll go ahead. We'll start off with one that won't be in the library. We're gonna go ahead and start off with the Saints here. Uh, where
I
do they sit on
so
your?
Actually, this is interesting. I would honestly put them at the heavy metal concert more than eardrums bursting because I don't think there's any one scapegoat that the fans would be calling for. The fans knew this would be a
Yeah,
bad season. So it's just kind of like an echoing of the off-season yelling, if you will. So that's why I
yeah.
would kind of
It's
have
not
them.
Kellen Moore's fault. He's not getting yelled at about it. First year, like he's doing the best he can. Um, they came into the season not really having a quarterback, but I feel like no one was delusional enough to expect a whole lot out of the Saints. So no one's delusional enough to be that upset when they're off to an 0-3 start, and likely gonna have a few more of those losses pile up.
Yeah, we good with not putting them in eardrums bursting then?
Oh, I definitely don't think that they're one of the worst situations we've got on this. So I mean, situation wise, horrible team. However, for like Kellen Moore and ownership and all that, I think they're sitting pretty.
Okay.
Uh, this is what they expected. Next up, we'll be bouncing around from winless to having a win. We're gonna go Broncos.
Okay.
Now, the Broncos coming off of a pretty good season, pretty good rookie season, out of Bo Nix. Where do you think they sit?
Personally, I was never a fan of Bo Nix. I was never a fan of Sean Payton. You put them together, and shocker, I'm not a fan of the team. But it worked last year. The fact that it's not working this year is very alarming. I would put them at a minimum at 109 decibels, if not a little
Yeah,
higher.
I think I haven't seen enough about it to really put them higher, but 109 decibels, that's amply loud. If you're not up to date with your decibel scale, probably about 90 is like big crowd noise, no average crowd noise. So this is a little bit louder than that, and I think that the Broncos can slot in there quite well. Next up, we can go ahead with the Titans. I have them probably under 109 decibels. I have them sitting at a kid's party because, like the Kellen Moore thing going on with that, it's a little louder there. But, like, I almost feel like the expectation was having the first overall pick this season. It's like one of them has to give. I feel like there's just no talent around Cam Ward. So I can't really say, oh, it's pretty loud over there. They really suck. Because it feels like everyone was in agreement. Oh yeah, no, there's no talent. The Saints, you have talent there. There's pieces there that were still good and they've been there for a while, but they're not producing wins. What
Yeah,
do you feel?
yeah, I fully agree. I think that especially coming off a horrible season, the noise cannot be too loud. Um, and then I would actually like to get into a pick of my own for a bit,
Woohoo!
or a couple of my own. And first up, I want to talk Dolphins, 0-3. I think their eardrums are absolutely bursting.
Mm-hmm. This is probably, I mean, they lost to the Bills last, and it was the most competitive game somehow. But it just, as we stated at the top of the podcast, which if you're watching this as just the segment of the podcast, we release the podcast tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to just go ahead and if you're watching this day of release, just go ahead, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll get that podcast right to your subscriptions. But getting into my thoughts on the Dolphins, I definitely think that they're right there, eardrums bursting, because they've built up this regime, and McDaniels has been in control so long to really shape the team how he wants. And then this is the production we're seeing out of them after, years and years of the team getting better and adding talent. So, they're going to have some blood running down their jawline here, in my eyes.
Yeah, for sure. Then let's go into the Patriots, my personal team. I would
Hmm.
put them at a metal concert. I think the slow start they're off to is just really bad with all the off-season hype and the I wouldn't say victory lap I took after the off-season, but the hype that I had for them personally at least after what they did.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like they can turn it around at this point, but I think even with what you were telling me on Sunday, like why is Ramondre Stevenson in the game here? Why does he get a second opportunity to fumble this ball away? This is not even second opportunity. This has been an ongoing problem for Ramondre, and yet it's just seems like they're okay with having a slightly mediocre performance there and not really giving opportunities to other backs. I would put them there as well because you do have, new regime, a lot of hype, a lot of money spent in the offseason. This isn't a Titans, this wasn't somebody coming in and like, well, crap, this is what I got. Like, they have a lot of pieces, they paid for a lot of pieces, and then they drafted, good, promising pieces. So, why aren't you having a better start? Why isn't the play calling better? And, I don't think I think it's just the caliber of the losses that is putting them here. It's not that they've lost these games; it's that they've lost them those ways.
Yeah, and only win is to the Dolphins, which again, their
Hmm.
eardrums are bursting. But if you would like to pick a couple teams,
You know what? While we're on the AFC East, the New York Jets. I had middled expectations for them. I didn't think that it was going to be a 180 turnaround year after year, but I do believe in Aaron Glenn, and I did state, before the season, like this might not be a super competitive team in the record, but they're going to be competing and have these close games. And yeah, they maybe didn't have a close game last week, but
they did.
I well, okay, 2 weeks ago, their week two loss.
All right.
Um, but yeah, I think I I kind of want to put them in kids party with the Titans, but they're enough talented of a roster where I could see going higher. Where do you feel?
I'm hovering between 109 and Kids Party. Like I feel like they're like a gymnastics competition. Like there's not that much yelling, but it's there.
it's
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 louder than a Kids
majority
Party.
quiet, but there's gonna be like a little pop when someone does a cool flip.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm okay putting them in Kids Party though. I feel like with the flashes that we saw from Justin Fields, and then the fact that he's hurt now, so we can kind of
mhm.
assume that a little bit of the blame is going to be placed on the injury, and not they're not going to yell about the injury or anything like that. You know.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him because if if it was Fields playing every week and it wasn't great performances, like we've seen him for 2 games, and one was great and one was not. So we need just a bigger sample size with the true starter out there. But next up, we'll get into the Panthers. I want to hear your thoughts on this first.
I think the noise is very loud for the Panthers, but I don't think it's necessarily all on Bryce Young. And especially after that 30-point win over the Falcons, I think the noise is coming down. Exiting week two, I probably would have had them at a metal concert. Right now, I think 109. It's calmed down a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, and we're seeing some success. I could also see Kids Party if we're seeing week three as the truest representation of them, and not really focusing on the uh, the first 2 weeks as and kind of seeing those more as a fluke than anything. So I'll defer to you between
Yeah,
those two.
this is definitely a team that's been coming down on this. I mean, after the week one, you probably would have had them eardrums bursting. Um, and then week two, you had a great Bryce Young performance. You probably would have dropped that down into metal concert. So I'm feeling like 109 decibels. They got their first win, so this is another big reason to knock them down. But there's gonna be this noise about them because coming into the season, I mean, they have a fairly talented roster. They're not one of the worst rosters, and they definitely should be performing better than they are, at least in my opinion. So I think 109 is a good level for them to sit at. Now I feel like we're kind of dwindling on the teams that have bigger question marks, but
Yeah, I think
I think
real quick we can quick fire through two of them if you'd like, the two kind of
yeah,
outliers on this list,
mm-hmm,
and that's the Ravens and Chiefs. I mean, it's a library there. There's no concern.
yeah,
Slow start,
they're right there
it's
next to
whatever.
each other, playing footsies under the table. Like they're sitting in the library. It's an empty library. outside of them, at least I would imagine. Still looking at the rest of the people here,
Yeah,
but
no, nobody else is in a library right now.
yeah, everyone else has got something going on.
Yeah.
And to add into the something, we'll go ahead and get right into it. The Giants.
I
Where do
think
you think they are?
so. I think the eardrums are bursting, and it's not necessarily because I think they are the worst team ever, but I think it's because Russ needs to take a seat on the bench. I think it needs to be Jameis Winston throwing to Malik Neighbors 10 times a game, or it needs to be Jackson Dart getting his opportunities. But you need somebody
Yeah.
that's not just a middling game manager, and that's all that Russ is. So I would have them in eardrums bursting pretty easily.
I mean, the eardrums were bursting this past week when they're playing Kansas City, and they put Jackson Dart in for one play, and then they bring Russ right back out. It's like you could hear it. It's undeniable noise coming, and of course, the narrative now is like, okay, when do they sit Russ? Because you have a coach whose job is on the line. It felt like his job was on the line even a couple of seasons ago, but then they had a great year and they turned some stuff around. And then Danny Dimes is out of there, and now they've got what feels like it's going to be a rotating door of quarterbacks. So it's loud because you want to see wins start coming in, and if it's with this quarterback, the next quarterback doesn't really matter. I think that the noise is especially there because you have this first round pick sitting on the bench at the moment.
Another team that I think it's also very loud for, and I'm curious to see where you would put them, is the Texans.
Yeah, um, man, this is a team. It's so talented on defense, and the offensive line is the biggest problem on the offensive side of things. We saw them make it worse by trading away Tunsil. Now, granted, he was kind of in his own fall off at the time, so who knows what he would be doing right now for the team if he was there, and how much better they might look or might not. But it's just like an offense with no gel, and the wasting away of a defense that is absolutely phenomenal. I would also put them. It's like the pieces are there, but until the offensive line manages to produce anything, they have to be in eardrums bursting. Like no one's calling for the coach, no one's calling for C.J. Stroud,
Uh,
but the noise is loud about the offensive line. Because if you recognize that the offensive line is the problem, I don't see how you can yell about the quarterback there.
yeah, I've seen a little more yelling about the quarterback there. I won't lie. I've seen a little bit more like, where is the C.J. Stroud we saw in his rookie season? And I can't say I disagree. I can't say that's a question that I don't have, because it does look a little worse for CJ Stroud. And I'm sure a lot of the blame does fall on the offensive line and the lack of Tank Dell, but a 5'8" receiver is not going to make a quarterback better. And, uh, offensive line, sure. But CJ Stroud's got to do better. And I feel like that's where the eardrums are bursting from, is from, obviously the bad O line play, but then CJ Stroud not overcoming it as the kind of player we expected him to be after his rookie year. But next, let's go Browns. Let's go
We're
Browns
running low
next.
here.
Yeah.
Wow. Man. After seeing the Browns beat the Packers, it's like, how is this happening? How did the Packers, who looked so great week 1 and 2, manage to lose that game? Like, I can't even be very loud because the Browns, they're another one of those teams, the lowest of low expectations. No the quarterback carousel once again, rotating door that we see as a possibility because they spent their draft picks on quarterbacks. I'm kind of sitting at kids party because like I feel like they're right in line with Titans, Jets, and like now the Browns. Like, yeah, the Titans and the Jets are both winless, and the Browns just managed one of the craziest wins over. Not even crazy in like how it occurred, just crazy in the opponent. And I feel like you can't really be upset as a Brown. You just won, and the team has been playing as expected. And I mean, hey, last week if nothing else, 2 weeks ago, they gave Derrick Henry a very low rushing game,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
can't
I
be that
think,
mad as a Browns
see,
fan.
I think they are actually in the library because they have no fans anymore, so there's no noise coming from anywhere. So
Yeah,
if
stands
you
are
look at
quiet.
that, it's very quiet in their stadium. Um, but yeah, I agree, Kids Party. And then we can get into the Falcons. I think is the next one where
Mm-hmm.
I think it's getting kind of loud for them, especially after this past week losing 30-0 to the Panthers.
Yeah, the divisional aspect of that really drives that home. Um, like we've seen the changes, we've seen what's probably coming in, but you know, there's a firing coming out of this game, out of this loss.
Yeah.
As of 3 hours ago, they went ahead and they fired an assistant coach. So the noise has got to be pretty loud for you to start firing people. I don't care, what the opinions are in the building. If like they think, yeah, no, we still have a great roster, we still got great coaches. There was enough pressure from outside to cause someone to lose their job, and that's at bare minimum a metal concert. I don't think everything. I don't think the wheels are falling off, and it's going to be a winless season from this on. And I don't feel like they're trending upwards like I did with the Panthers, off the back of this win, or the Broncos, who we kind of put in that 109 decibel. So I feel like black metal is kind of where that metal concert's where they sit at.
All right. Then how about the Bears, especially after this past week? I
I
feel like
mean,
I
we
feel like
finally got a chance to see them gel, and this feels like it's kids' party. Like we knew it was going to take a while for this offense to gel, for Caleb to get it. Ben Johnson's, of course, got a very meticulous scheme that's got layers to it, and so the slow start doesn't feel like unexpected. And I think that kids' party is a pretty safe spot for it, uh, especially off the back of a pretty significant performance this past Sunday.
yeah, agreed. Now, two teams left, Cowboys and Raiders. Which would you like to get into first?
Well, we'll go ahead. We'll start off with the Raiders. They underwent a lot of changes in this offseason. I feel like the noise is probably about a metal concert because of the inefficiency of using their first pick of Ashton Genty. Um, and that's, again, as we pointed out with, the Texans and their performances, it's been an issue due to the the team's inability to have an offensive line produce really much of space for him. Because when he does have space to hit a hole and get to the line of scrimmage, he's generating some good yards. But when he doesn't, that's when we're not seeing really much of anything. And unfortunately for Ashton Genty, we're seeing that more often than we're seeing a hole be made. So I would have them at the metal concert. Where do you sit with them?
I can agree there. I had them probably at 109 rather than the metal concert, but I see the complaints and the inefficiencies of Genty so far. I just think because it's such a new regime and it's new quarterback, new running back, and new head coach, so new coaching staff entirely. Like your entire
Mm-hmm.
offense has never played together before, and it's kind of a an issue of uh, cohesiveness rather than an issue of the lack of talent. So that's why I'm a little leaning towards that 109 rather than the metal concert.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Gino hasn't been where they may have wanted him to be, but I get your points with you know, I would be okay with dropping them into 109 due to all of the points you made about this being the first year for everything to go down and everything needs time to, of course, mesh together. So I'm okay with 109 if you are.
Okay. And then Cowboys, we've got a new coaching staff and an injured CD Lamb and no more Micah Parsons. And Jerry's still there. And as long as Jerry's there, there's going to be some eardrums bursting noise coming for, like, calling for his firing. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should address more of like the on the field team, so coaches and players rather than owner, because we didn't take owner into account with any
the
of these other
the
teams.
noise doesn't change. There's always noise about Jerry Jones, so we can just it's basically white noise in the back of their mind by now.
True.
They don't care about it. It's the new noise that's the horns and stuff coming in, not just like this flat line in the background. Um, I feel like they've got a good team. I mean, they're better than expected with their run game. So there's certainly pieces of the team that you're seeing be better than, you know, average, better than what was, you know, advertised. And they were competitive in their matchups. Outside of this one to the Bears, which you lose CeeDee Lamb and you're going to lose some of that competitiveness. I think from injury, you can't really raise the noise. No one's getting mad because, you know, CeeDee Lamb didn't produce. He didn't play. He got hurt. So I feel like this is almost kids' party. Um, but there's always just that latent noise that about the Cowboys. They're such a big media, you know, team. Everyone's always talking about them in the media that it's perceived as being like a 109 decibel team, but in reality, I feel like it's just a kids' party.
I can agree with that. I think that that's fair. Um, it's quite the array of teams we've got in Kids Party, but I think that
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of them, like we were talking about, it's more for lack of expectations than it is for true lack of noise, if that makes sense. Um,
yeah, I mean, look at that kids' party group and tell me how many of those would you have been like, yeah, that's a playoff team. Like, and we got 109. We have Broncos. That could have been a playoff team. Falcons. That could have been a playoff team. Patriots. That could have been one. Texans definitely would have been considering it. So you know, middled through this is the teams that had expectations and did not. And so the teams that did not have expectations, we're generally pulling them down. But the reason that they didn't have expectations is likely because they don't have a great roster and their coaches might be getting fired. So that'll wrap up this segment. Again, if you enjoyed, go ahead, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and next day, tomorrow, you'll be getting that notification that tells you, hey, the full podcast just came out, where you get to hear us talk about our picks as we highlight some of the games moving forward, and then with the past week's recap, kind of go over those as well every single week. So if you're interested, if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and do that. But we're gonna go ahead and transition back into our regularly scheduled podcast.